Hey, hello, and welcome to this podcast. My name is Veronique Rodoni. I'm the Group SVP HR for Akkodis. At Akkodis, we strongly believe that smart industry not only plays a role in digital transformation, but also serves as a change agent to bring more an equitable and a more sustainable tomorrow. As a company committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, Akkodis has chosen to take a stand globally for girls and women in tech with a special focus on smart industry. Smart industry being where engineering, IT, and digital converge into a connected world. Given this, it's my sincere pleasure to be joined today by three very, very inspirational and strong women. We'll explore the impact of women in tech with a special focus on the aerospace industry. Please welcome Olga Custodio, retired Lieutenant Colonel from the U.S. Air Force Reserves. She was the first Hispanic female to graduate from U.S. Air Force undergraduate pilot training. She was also the first Hispanic female pilot at American Airlines, retiring as a captain after 20 years of service. Olga is a community leader and advocate for education and STEM. She has been a speaker for over 30 years, covering aviation topics, inclusion and diversity, and pathways to profession in aviation and aerospace. Our next guest as well is Nia Asemota, an Afro-Latina engineer, artist, fashion model from New York City, whose journey has taken her from software engineering at NESA to product management in financial engineering at Spotify. As she founded ArtX Nia LLC, a venture dedicated to empowering young girls in STEM through diverse educational resources. Nia is also an active member of the Girls Who Code community, serving as a mentor and also holding a seat on their Alumni Advisor Council. We are also very pleased to welcome Asma Gasmi, a Tunisian researcher and industrial engineer here at Akkodis, with a strong foundation in IoT and AI. Asma graduated at the top of her class with a National Engineering Diploma in Mechatronics and Automatic Control from the École Pluridisciplinaire Internationale. And she holds also a master's degree from Université Grenoble-Alpes. She has also a PhD from École des Mines de Saint-Étienne. Beyond her own research, Asma is also committed to nurturing the next generation of engineers. So ladies, warm welcome and thank you all for joining me today. It's my real pleasure. So to start, I've introduced each of you with some brief professional highlights, but each of you explain how you became interested in aviation and tech. Olga, let's start with you.
Absolutely. Good morning and hi to everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm Olga Custodio. I've been in aviation for over 40 years. And something that I followed was my father in the military. I was always admiring him and looked up to him. But we lived around the world because of his assignments, and just being able to travel and see the world from a different perspective, I found that so interesting. But I never thought that I would go into aviation. My strong suit was actually math. So when I graduated high school at 16 years old, when my father retired, my plan was to do that and to join the ROTC program, which is a military program. But at the time, women weren't allowed in that program. So I had to change my major from math to business to be kind of finding a good job, out in the market there and a good profession. But I did do my minor in math anyway. And eventually, I got married, had a child, and found that the Air Force had an opening for women in their military pilot training program. And I applied. And here I was, the first Latina, which wasn't in my mind, but that's how I got into aviation. So I kind of got to do both, go into the military and serve like my father, but also go into a profession that was the best job in the Air Force at the time. So my military career gave me that opportunity to go into the pilot training program as a pioneer. And here we are 40 years later. Unfortunately, women only make up 6% of that profession worldwide, and sometimes even less. But I enjoy it. I still fly, and so I'm excited to be here and talk to these amazing ladies that are with us.
Thanks so much, Olga. What about you, Nia? Can you share your thoughts?
Yeah, so first, thank you for having me. And it's interesting because growing up, I never saw myself in tech or aviation, anything of the sort. I come from a Puerto Rican and Nigerian household, so from a very early age, it's like, okay, Nia, when you grow up, you're going to become a doctor, you're going to do XYZ. And I sort of followed that route. In high school, I loved bio and math, so it was sort of a natural fitting for me to pursue the medical route. It was this one day my mom was doing research about robotics, and she's like, okay, I know you're going to do this, but you should check out the robotics team after school. And I was very hesitant because one, I didn't know how to code. I didn't know how to use, the tools, the electrical wires, none of that. And I was going to be one of 5 girls on the team. It was like 36 members. So that was a struggle, trying to understand those dynamics. But it's interesting because I learned about girls who code in high school, as well as saw an all girls team competing. So that was okay, there's other people who are in tech and computer science who look like me pursuing their passions, same age, so I can do it. So that was that story. I still continued on with bio in college. I actually started off as a bio and chemical engineering major, eventually switched off to biomolecular science, had my minor in computer science, and that brought me to NASA as a software engineer, actually wearing my little NASA shirt today. But yeah, that's my journey. Right now, I'm currently a part of the Girls Who Code Alumni Advisory Board. Essentially, we're helping them with their programming and just having conversations about, the latest emerging tech. What are some educational issues that, we as women, non-binary individuals face today? So, yeah.
Thank you so much. What about you, Asma? Tell us more.
Hello again, and thank you for having me with you today. I'm an industrial engineer and researcher specialized in EOT at Akkodis. And my journey through tech, it was starting when I was little. Although I share the same the same background and the same story as Nia. When I was little, I dreamed of becoming an architect like my mother, but when I started learning technology and mechanics, I fell in love with the robots and how the mechanism works behind the scenes, and I was fascinating about how the little parts are working, and being in a domain that is domained mainly by men. It was very challenging. I remember, like, my father, when I was little girl, he wanted me to become a doctor in medicine, but I end up to be a doctor of another kind, not in medicine. But I fell in love with mechanicals and robotics, and I remember my first competition in robotics. I have like 40 or 30, and I did a small robot that can follow a thick black line using sensors. From that became the journey. I make some studies in engineering, in electrical and mechanical engineering, and then I persuaded to try to chase the train of technology, using IA, using EOT, and making the future a little bit smarter. So that's it.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Asma. Hey, ladies, technology is constantly changing and the pace of development is increasing. Yeah. So a little while ago, we know that ChatGPT took the world, by storm. And now Gen AI has become mainstream. I was wondering what kind of impact do you see AI will have the advancement for aviation. And maybe we can start with you, Olga.
Sure, absolutely. Well, when I started in aviation, our instrumentation was all gyroscopic instruments, vacuum pressured instruments. And as it evolved, I mean, the avionics, the computers coming into the flight deck were amazing. I remember upgrading from a Boeing 727 to a Fokker 100, and you walk into the flight deck, and it looked like a blank page. But as soon as you turned the battery on and started up the engines, I mean, everything came to life. Avionics is an amazing thing. And I think AI is going to have and is having a big impact, especially in the maintenance side of it, because they can kind of assess what's going on with the airplane, kind of give some algorithms of what needs to be changed or fixed or looked into, especially on the airplane when there is redundant systems that help. If one system fails, sometimes you don't even know it has because the next system kind of takes over. And so unless you look at it or a message pops up, I mean, AI is advancing by leaps and bounds. One thing we know, though, that these autonomous vehicles or aviation is going to take a while before somebody gets on an airplane without any pilots on there, but we might be heading in that direction.
We are crafting AI-driven solution designed to enrich the training experience. The goal here is to create a training ecosystem that evolves with the learner, making every flying hour as productive as possible, using IA algorithms and IA systems. So the idea here is that we collect the data from the movement of the eyes using goggles. We use this unlabeled data to try to connect the dots and find clusters to know if the exercise was hard on the trainee or not, and try to adapt it, the difficulties and make the experience for the trainee as much as effective as possible.
Right. I want to interject. I had the opportunity to try those VR goggles, and the technician was surprised to see my eye movement versus other people who didn't have as much experience in the flight as I did. But I know that in the Pilot Next training program in the military, those VR goggles are very important for their training because it has shortened the training time frame and syllabus for the pilots. So it was quite interesting to hear his comment about that. And I think it's a great training tool for the aviation world.
All right. Nia, I will be super interested as well to know what is your experience with AI and tech.
Yeah, so I first started learning about artificial intelligence during the pandemic at school. So at the time, we had more flexibility in what classes we can take. And I took a few like Thinking, Learning, Consciousness, and Humans and Machine. Another one was called Big Ideas in AI, and another just Technology in the Future of Work. So it was really interesting for me because each week we had a different speaker and learned about how AI played an impact in their day-to-day life in different fields and different industries. So I remember one day in class, we talked about AI and determining like and evaluating tumors in healthcare, robotic-assisted surgeries, the impacts of AI in law reform, criminal justice reform, and just the different impacts that they had. And one thing that was really important for me, a huge takeaway, is how these machines are built, how the algorithms are built, but also when we're building these, who is being left out? Is it intentional or not intentional? Two main figures that, were huge motivation for me to pursue a residency in AI ML were Timnit Gebru and Joy Balamwini. They talked about how specifically computers don't see and recognize people of color and the impacts of that, because what can happen is these machines, these systems, these algorithms will continue to perpetuate cycles of racism, sexism, misogyny, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we, at the building blocks, make sure that the teams, the data that we're inputting in is representative of the world as a whole, because these systems will impact or have a global impact. So I thought that was really important when we were studying that.
Very nice experience. Thank you. And ladies, you are three strong ladies at this table, virtual table. And I was wondering, what's your view regarding the speed at which technology now is developing in relation to the gender gap in tech that we know? What's your view on that?
Earlier, I mentioned the robotics story, and it was interesting because in order to get more comfortable on the team, I actually went to YouTube, and there I learned how to code, the beginners of, electrical engineering. I literally searched up, okay, we're doing this type of robot. How do I make the wheels turn, right? And that was my basis. And I was able to take that knowledge and be very hands-on on the team. But had I not had YouTube, had I not had these other courses, I wouldn't be able to even speak at the table. So I think that was really crucial for me. And just growing up in my journey, really appreciative of organizations like Girls Who Code. I was involved in Black Girls Code, and just teaching people at an early age, okay, here's the tools, the resources, the languages that you need to be able to communicate this on a large scale. And I think it's really important to have that at a younger age too. So I taught at Black Girls Code. I was teaching 7 to 13. And I was actually reading a study, which is really sad when you think about it. But it was saying that girls lose confidence in math as early as 3rd grade. So 3rd grade, you're 7 years old, I think 7 years old. And then you don't see yourself in the media. You don't see yourself in your teachers. You don't see yourself, math, scientists, engineers. So you lose that confidence. And I really think that seeing is believing. So just having these programs, these resources at an early age will, help us be more present and confident at the table and making the table too, as engineers. So.
Absolutely. I think that age is critical for young girls as well. As you mentioned, Nia, reaching those young ladies at such a young age makes a big impact. And like you said, if they can't see it, they can't be it. But we feel, and I've been out there for a while trying to impact young ladies and catch them at least at middle school, because right there at that point, there's a lot going on, not only in school, but physically, biologically. And I think they lose that confidence that you talked about going into it. So we try and expose these young girls and have a day of aviation. And we bring in all the technologies, all the engineering schools, the aviation schools, and expose these young girls to different opportunities and options that they could start looking into at a young age. Because by the time I feel they get to high school, it's a bit too late for them to try and decide, even though my mantra is it's never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you have a dream, you go for it. So if that's something you've always wanted to do. But I feel just trying to get that confidence for them and seeing that, that tech world and that STEM world is for them as well as for everyone. So I think that's important.
And I think that digital and online courses, they prepare that kind of environment for the girls, even if they were shy and all, when you have a digital environment and that you are in a safe place where only girls are with you and girls with success stories, and you can see what other girls can do and other women could do. So you will have confidence in yourself, and you will say, yeah, if they could do it, I can do it. And I can learn whatever the digital world can bring to me. And that's the sole role for me of technology nowadays, that can open doors before that was closed for women and for girls.
Very strong. Open doors with technology, right, which are available now. Very strong indeed. But let me throw to you a disruptive question, right? Why at the end do we need women in tech? Can you please elaborate a bit more on this one?
I think women have more skills as multitasking. We're more detail oriented. we have to manage so many things that we try and find the best way and the best approach for it. So we would bring that to the table for technology. We would think through instead of just doing. It's like, how do we get from point A to point B? And then ask the right questions and bring that to the table and into the conversation. So I know that Nia and Asma had mentioned that there's gender, that the technology doesn't know who is dealing with it. But then again, I think that trying to bring in more diversity is important, especially if you're collecting data for biomedicine. I think that's important as well, as Nia was sharing before, that everyone needs to be included. And I think the more diverse it is, the better the technology outcomes and data is going to be.
And I think also to add up what you said, Olga, incorporating women's perspective in technology development, it's just not about equality. It's about creating solution that addresses the needs of a border of demographic. Women in tech can lead to innovation that are more accurately reflect and cater to the diverse needs of our global community. And with the woman point of view and the woman perspective, we could help them adapt more solution and technology solution to their daily basis and daily needs that men couldn't understand.
No, so just echoing everything that y'all said too. I think, for example, when you think about different innovations in tech, women are very empathetic and can see the needs of people in general. So, for example, if you're having technology or you're trying to optimize, I don't know, a baby stroller, other things related to pregnancy, children, individuals with disability, I feel like women have that greater, well-rounded sense of, okay, these are some of the needs and how can we create a solution or optimize an already existing solution to make sure that everyone feels like seen, heard, represented, and it caters to them. So I feel like that's why it's really important to have, us, our voices at the table.
All right. Very clear. So women creating the solution thanks to the democratics and thanks to the solution that they need. And so being more creative in designing this solution, that's clear. And then looking at the young generation of women, right? And how we can bring the passion that will enable these women, the next generation of women, to become pioneers, trailblazers in tech. What do you think about that, Olga?
Well, like I mentioned before, I am involved with different nonprofits that we go out and try and encourage young students to get into STEM professions. We have the ability to be out there and let them see us. Like, Nia is in Girls Who Code, and Asma, is doing advancement in AI, which is incredible. But I think that we, as women in this area, need to be out there and letting others see us and sharing our struggles and our stories, because they can kind of understand that they have the same kind of struggles to get into this profession, especially if it's a male dominated profession, which it still is. And we have a long way to go, but trying to get the young women there and then trying to maintain them in this profession is another struggle that we have to look at. So sometimes it's easy to bring them in, but the harder part is having them stay in. When the struggles get really hard, it's something that we need to reach down and pull them up and mentor them and keep them in the race, in the field. Because it's easy just to say, no, this is too hard. And then they just step away from it. So I think that is going to help that gender gap for technology. And it's something that we as women and diverse women need to kind of look at and take the reins in that. I think mentorship is huge.
Asma, you want to share your experience as well?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with what Olga just said. Making young women and young girls see some role models. I know mine was my mother, who was like one of the first women to have a brilliant career in architect in Tunisia. Um, I feel like if she could do it, if she was like in an age and in a society that was dominated by men, that also tried to let's say break her a little bit as a woman in a field filled with men, I think I can do it. And that was one of the reasons that motivated me to be the woman I am today. And I think if we could show this to the young girls, that you can do it, even if there's some struggle, there's no judgment there. You can do it. It's not a problem if you fall, but you have to try again. It will be harder. It is hard. Don't give up. You can do it. Other women could, so you can. And this is the message that if we like share this message to the young girls, I think they will have confidence in themselves. And if we create a safe environment for them to learn without being judged also, and without having the fear, if I fail, I may lose it all, and I may not be able to redo it again. I think in that way the gap between technology and female gender, it will like be closed as small as possible, let's say.
No, I definitely agree with everything there. And I remember earlier I was mentioning that girls lose confidence in math as early as 7 years old, right? And that's very, very young. So imagine a world where they had mathematicians who were women to look up to in elementary school, right? Imagine if outside of the girls that I did robotics with, if I knew about these amazing women roboticists in high school, right? Or even in college when I'm the only person who looks like me in my classroom, it's like, okay, I have these people who did it, who I can look up to. And it's like, okay, because it's going to get hard, it's going to get challenging. But in those moments, you need to hold on to hope and keep going. So I think that's really important too. Especially for the younger girls, I create coloring books and I just have role models in the back. So, as they're coloring along, they can learn and see, okay, this person looks like me and she was the first astronaut to go up into space who looks like me. This person looks like me and she's a brilliant mathematician. This person looks like me and oh, wow, I didn't know she contributed making the GPS as we know it today, and just sharing these stories that we don't hear about in school, which I think we should. I feel like women touch on every part of technology. And like I mentioned earlier, make it more equitable for people who look like you and I. So I think we should really be learning about them. I think that they should join communities like Girls Who Code, a Black Girls Code, Women, Society of Women Engineers, just to have that sisterhood support, because I think that you can find role models in your peers and just building up that support system to say, okay, she can do it, I can do it, and together we can do XYZ, because you really build your community and you're stronger. What's the saying? It's like I think there's more force in numbers, there's more power in numbers. So
excellent. So cultivate a passion is, let's say, you see, you can do it. You can also, let's say, role model, and you can make sure that every stage, it's role modeling from elementary school to up, and belonging to a community stronger together. That's clear. So my last question will be for you. You are all at various stages of your respective careers yet. And one thing I noticed is that each of you seems to make a priority at mentoring those younger or less experienced than you. What is one piece of advice you would give to young women thinking about pursuing a career in tech?
Well, that's a good question. I would say pursue your passions and know your why. one thing I realized like growing up is everything is full circle. So the interests, the passions that I had during childhood are actually like recycling themselves today. So earlier when I was like 6, 7, I wanted to be a fashion model, and today I am one. I was always building Legos when I was younger, always interested in tech, but like I mentioned, it was sort of put on pause because, you know, Nia, you're going to become a doctor, everything like that. But when I was in school, I was actually learning about robotic assisted surgeries. I was, you know, doing the healthcare, I was doing the tech, I was doing everything. So know your why as well. I think that's important to, you know, help you pursue on. I feel like a big conversation when we have these discussions about women in tech is on imposter syndrome. And for me, my why was, okay, I started teaching a Black Girls Code at that time. So I needed to be super, you know, versed in how to code and how to communicate how to code to the 7-year-olds. So and when my classes got hard, it's okay, Nia, you're doing this for you, but you're doing this for, you know, your younger self and the 6 and 7-year-olds who are trying to, you know, be like you or be like these other role models that you're introducing them to.
Great.
My advice would be to embrace curiosity and never shy away from a challenge, because the tech world is one of the consistent evolution where learning is continuous. So I advise them to don't be intimidated by the unknown. Instead, view each challenge as an opportunity to grow and to make an innovation. And as we discussed earlier, each girl is unique. So remember that unique perspective is your strength, and it can lead you to breakthroughs that may not occur to others. Dive in, stay persistent, let your passion and love for tech guide you and take you to marvelous places.
That's great. I love what you both said. The opportunities, and that's kind of one of my mantras. Is when I talk to young ladies, young girls, I always tell them to share what their passion is, to share what their dream is, because you never know who you're talking to. That person might be the one to give you the opportunity to share a story, to know someone else who might give you the opportunity. So I think that's an important thing, is to put it out in the world, because it's something that you never know when that opportunity is going to come. So I would say stay open to the possibilities and you'll find your opportunity, because it's out there. And I've also heard that never tell a young person that something's impossible, because it might be the one thing that that person is going to be able to do, discover, and find.
Thank you. Thank you. It's all about opportunities. So let's share our passion, dreams, stories, opportunities are there. Nothing is impossible. So this is what I take away. Thanks so much, Olga, Nia, and Asma, for your participation. It was a real pleasure to host you today. This was for sure an amazing source of inspiration. Thank you for being there. Thank you for sharing. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Engineering a smarter future together.